Coucou, what's up? It's your girl Kadija, aka the Musing Nomad, and I'm back again with another video. First and foremost, I want to wish you all a happy new year, or en français, bonne année. It's been a while that I haven't been back, and I decided to come back with a video talking about the myths and the legends of what it is to be American and how I view that after having lived abroad in Eurasia, aka Europe, but more specifically France for the past decade. So I've been in France now for over a decade, and most likely I'm probably gonna stay. It wasn't in the cards. It's not what I thought I was going to be doing. It's not somewhere I imagined being long term like this, but I'm still here, and for the time being, I think this is gonna be home. So I moved to France in my 20s, and now I'm in my 30s, and the majority of my adult years have actually now been in France rather than in the US. Like years ago, I made videos about moving to France. If you're interested in moving to France, things to do, setting up, and all of that stuff. Those videos still are available on my channel, so check them out. If you have any questions about moving here, tips and things that I can do to help, please let me know. Others in the past have messaged me on Instagram, so check me out on Instagram and via the comment section and ask me questions, and I'm more than happy to help if I can, right? So if you have questions, yeah, by all means, send me a message and I'll do my best to get back to you. For the most part, the things I'm talking about are pretty general, but I'm not someone that's apolitical, okay? Fight the power all day, every day. The personal is political. But anyways, let's get started with all of that. The largest of the myths. So this one, I broke it down in several aspects. So it's all of this for me encompass what freedom is, right? So I'm going to talk about gun violence, education, healthcare, the cost of living / job security, food, transportation, etc. So another aspect of freedom that I think is really important, and this is a driving force all over the world when it comes to inflation currently, is the cost of living, and I'm tying that with job security. So one of the things I personally really appreciate about France, and it's also a double-edged sword in France, is the fact that once someone is hired and they have a permanent contract, to fire them, it's not that it's impossible. It's definitely possible. It's difficult, okay? So that gives people a lot of job security. And one of the things that I've noticed as of late when it comes to if you want to teach English in France, a lot of companies now are hiring only, in French it's called auto-entrepreneur, self-employed individuals. I know some people who have a type of visa where it allows them to be able to create their own jobs or create their own little companies, but it's difficult when you have a certain job or a certain visa and you can't do that, right? But again, I'm speaking from the perspective of somebody that is non-French, right? But in saying that, when you do have a certain job and a specific contract, like a CDE, which is a permanent contract, je sais pas comment dire ça, mais ça soulage. I don't know how to say that in English right now. It's comforting. It gives you a peace of mind, right? But again, kind of the things I've mentioned before. But if you are ever in a situation where you don't have a job, your funding is low, if you've put into the system, you can have access to it. When it comes to the thing that I mentioned before, it's called RSA. If you just move to France, you're not gonna have access to that. You need to have been here at least 5 years. There are certain things that you have to have done, like put into the system before you can have access to it. Once you do, it's basically like you're French, but you're not, right? So I think it's great that when it comes to job security, if you have like a CDE, you can be at ease. Whereas in the US, companies can fire at will. You don't really have job security unless it's your company. But even then, if it's your company, it's difficult if you have an LLC or whatever type of company that you have, an S corp, whatever. It's hard to maintain that if you're just starting off, right? Now, if you're a big corporation, okay, and you are abusing the system, i.e. United Health, okay, these insurance companies, i.e. State Farm, taking away fire insurance, just removing it. When this fire is happening currently in California, these companies doing grimy things to people, right? But sorry, going back to the job security, it's wonderful to have that, especially with regards to the rising cost of living for everything. It's a shame that in the US, I think the minimum wage is like the national minimum wage. I don't know exactly what it is, but let's say the last time I saw this, I think it was like $7 and some change. This was years ago, the last time I even looked into this. So I don't know what it is currently, but it's much lower than, obviously it's different state by state, but the national minimum wage is ridiculous. No one can live with that. When you think about the cost of living, depending on where you live, all of these things, the cost of food, all of this stuff, it doesn't make sense that, again, when it comes to the basic necessities of life, people don't have, comment on dit le mot? Je sais pas le mot. People don't feel at ease. They're not comforted that it's going to be okay, right? The government is not there really to help. In some aspect, yes, for sure. In some aspects, but generally it doesn't help the day-to-day normal person. And I think that's really a shame if people don't feel, assured in life, right? Because companies can, get rid of you whenever they want to. And then the cost of everything is increasing, yet the wages are not matching, right? How is it rent for a place is now $2,000 minimum? So I think like in Seattle, the rents have like doubled, right? Again, I left over a decade ago. So if I was paying at the time, let's say it was like $700 a month for an apartment, and now it's $1,600, $2,000, and the wages are not going up by much. How do you expect people to live? So you're paying, let's say, I'm just gonna use a number. We're speaking about Seattle, right? Let's say you're paying a minimum of $2,000 per month. You have to pay for food. Let's say food, if you're getting cheap food, maybe it's $400, $300 per month, right? And then you have to think about your gas. All of these things that cost so much money. And then thinking about gas, if we move to transportation, the US is designed to be a country where you need a car. And that's one of the things I value and I adore about living in France. I don't have a car. So I don't even drive in France. The only time I drive is when I go back home to the US, and that's really it. But I will actually be getting my French driver's license because, okay, the plan wasn't to be here as long as I've been, but since I'm here and I'm probably going to still stay here, yeah, I need to start driving. But anyways, you can live somewhere, if you live in a major city, you don't have to have a car. You can have your Metro card, you can take the bus, you can easily walk somewhere to go buy food if you need to. It's so easy to be able to move around. And I think the urban planning of France, especially major cities, because obviously you can live in towns, and that in those places you need a car. But when you're living in a large area, the urban design of the place makes it accessible to people. And again, I will say there's a caveat. One of the things I think is really unfortunate in Paris specifically, right? And it's not just Paris, but I'm going to talk about Paris specifically. If you are someone that you have limited mobility, if you're on a wheelchair, it is really difficult to be able to navigate Paris. And I think about that when I'm in the metro, and I'm just like, how are people supposed to get in and out? How? It's not possible. If you have limited mobility, that I will say is not a well-designed place. And I think that's unfortunate because it's not really thinking about everyone and making it accessible. And I think that's a part where in the US that is positive, because everywhere for the most part that you go to has to be wheelchair accessible. And I think that's a wonderful aspect that they have in the US, which I think France needs to adopt and do better, right? But again, pros and cons with all the places that you go. But I think the employer protection not being there, being able to fire at will, it doesn't make it for a safe economy. It makes it wonderful for the people that have all the money, but for the regular people that are doing the work to not be afforded that peace of mind, I think is really unfortunate. And I think that's where the US really needs to do better. If the inflation is increasing, the wages need to increase. It needs to fit, right? It doesn't make sense. So one of the things that here, if you are not earning at least 3 times your rent, you're likely not going to get this apartment, and you need to earn at least 3 times, which means, again, the cost of the wages here are a lot lower than in the US. I will say that, right? If you really want to make money, France is not a place to make money, okay? But again, the value system that they have here is very different from that of the US. So If you want money, the US is great to make money. But then your standard of living, it's not the same. And personally, I prefer the standard of living that I have here. Okay, the fact that I feel at peace. I don't feel like I have to, you know, the phrase work to live versus live to work. That is literally night and day. That is US France, or maybe not just US France. I feel like in the US you work to live. Is that the phrase? You live to work? No, in the US you live to work. It's just work, work, work. How 2 weeks vacation here, minimum. I think is it 4 or 5 weeks vacation, and especially if you're a teacher, there's vacations all the time. Now moving on to food, I will say I feel safer eating food in France than I do in the US. When I was in the US, because I told you I did AmeriCorps, right? Because I did AmeriCorps, I was able to get food stamps. Okay, I love that. Okay, shit, I think it was $200 at the time, and I was organic everything, Trader Joe's, all the stuff. I was getting all the stuff that year. Wonderful time. It was so difficult, but it was a wonderful time as well. But here I feel safe eating the food because the regulations are a lot higher. Like the FDA in the US, or is it, yeah, FDA in the US, I'm like, and considering who's going to be in charge of the FDA now, oh goodness. But here the regulations are tougher, right? So even not buying organic, I don't feel bad not buying organic here. I go to the farmer's market. It's open, I think, every day except Monday, if memory serves me right. I think Monday is the only day the farmers markets aren't open, but every day, Tuesday to Sunday, they're open. So you can go to the farm, and there's multiple farmers markets, like in the neighborhood. Like you can go to this neighborhood, you'll find one. You can go to another one, you find one. Like, I think that's so great that this is something that's normalized here. And I think one of the things that I used to complain about when I first came here, I had like a college-sized, dorm room-sized fridge in my apartment. And I'm like, what the hell? So because of that, I had to go shopping regularly. And now it's something I'm used to. And I recall like that studio that I lived in, the first few, I lived in that studio for a while. That studio that I lived in, it literally was the size of like the kitchen / dining room in mom's house. Like, and when I went home, I'm like, why is the kitchen so big? Like, is this necessary? Like, I'm really looking how like the homes are just unnecessarily large, right? Whereas like now I'm used to like, I'm a smaller space. Even though I'm a maximalist, and that's another issue in and of itself, but it's just, I just prefer the fact that there's just like a safety ease that I feel like exists here that doesn't exist in the US, right? It's just always the hustle and bustle. You don't know what you're eating, and then when it comes to like going out to eat, it's expensive, and then the expectation of you tipping 18%, girl, please. 18% where? Tip culture is not a thing here apart from the touristic areas, right? So if you're going out to eat, the gratuity is already included. The expectation that Americans are supposed to be paying 20% tip because their companies are not refusing to actually pay a livable wage to their employees is ridiculous. And I recall the last time I was home, which was like a couple of years ago, right? I took my mom to Azteca. We went to Azteca. Again, I hadn't been home in a while, okay? So the fact that we paid $70, well, I paid $70, it was a little more than $70 for just two of us at Azteca. I was like, girl, what? When did the prices become $30 for a meal at Azteca? I remember back in the day when you could go to Applebee's and get 2 for $20. What the hell? What, like, those things for me, I was just like, my brother is always saying like, if you ever move back here, you're gonna be shocked. And I'm already shocked as it is. Like, the prices are crazy. Again, it's not to say that prices aren't increasing here in France, because they are. There's definitely things that I'm noticing, like when it comes to electricity and, you know, certain things are definitely increasing. But the fact that I pay 20 euros for my phone is like damn near, let's just basically call it unlimited internet, because I never even use all the internet's even on this thing. I can call the US, it's included in my thing. 20 euros for everything. And there was a period, this was when I was at that apartment I mentioned earlier, where I was paying 10 euros a month for internet. Again, these things have increased, but it's okay, it's increased, let's say by $10, 10 euros. Things are definitely increasing. I'm definitely seeing that, but not the likes of what it is in the US, right? So it's just, it's the cost of living is not sustainable for the fact that the wages are not increasing, and the government can do something about it, but they're refusing to actually do things about it, right? So I think that is really unfortunate. So again, for me, when it comes to these freedoms, are we really free? Are we really free? I like the fact that fresh produce, I can have access to that regularly, every day if I want to, right? The fact that my meats are not enhanced, they're not modified genetically. Like, things like that. I really prefer and appreciate that about France. Moving forward, I think I already spoken about this, I touched on this a little bit, but when it comes to the transportation and urban planning, I value how it's done here. I think it's unfortunate that the US is so car reliant, and again, it just feeds into the system of you need to have a car, you need to, like, be showing off to the Joneses that you got it like that. You need to always be showing off that you have the best of the best of the best, and I think that is really just a sad mentality, and that's something you're not going to find really in France. But then I will also say the caveat is, in the US, I think when you kind of show off, it's something that's motivating. It might be a sick, weird way to look at it, but you're motivated, like, okay, this person was able to do it, I can do this too. Whereas in France, there is a jealousy that comes with that. French people don't like other people doing better than them. It's something I've noticed. I've spoken about this with like French friends, etc. It is a thing here. They don't like people like showing off and acting like they're better. And it's funny how people have this idea that French people are just like have their noses up and they're just whatever. In some aspects, I could see that, but really, when you're flexing, is not really looked at in a positive way here. There's a lot of jealousy when it comes to that. If you're showing that you got money in France, even though people do it subtly, but it's looked at in a certain way. But that there's another aspect of that. But I love the convenience of the metros, the bus systems. It just makes things so much easier, not having to be dependent on having a car. I think that is wonderful. So again, for me, these things when it comes to transportation, food, healthcare, costs of living / job security, education, and quote unquote, the gun situation. These things, if you don't actually have them accessible in a beneficial way for the population, I don't really see the US as being free. I don't see that freedom. I really don't. And again, like I've already touched on the freedom of the press, right? Are you really free? Freedom of religion. And even with that, when it comes to freedom of religion, if you're Christian, it's wonderful. Because imagine when you're being sworn in to be president, you're like have to swear in with the Bible. Or when you're in court hearings, I don't know if they still do that to this day. Correct me if I'm wrong. Swearing on a Bible, like, yeah, if you're Christian, Catholic, whatever, sure, great, wonderful. But if you're not those religions, then here comes the xenophobia. So there's that. These are some of my thoughts about these myths that Americans are indoctrinated into believing. If there's anything that I'm missing from this list, and if you want a more in-depth list of things that I appreciate about my experiences having lived in France, if you have any questions for me, please do not be afraid to write me, write a comment below. Add your myths of these beliefs that we have as American, or how the world even sees you. If you're not American and you have like certain beliefs or views of how Americans behave or idealize certain things or whatever, please write them. Thank you guys so much for stopping by, for listening to this video. If there's anything that I missed when it comes to the myths about living in the US and the indoctrination that we have as Americans, and the American centricism that we have, and not wanting to really experience other cultures and worlds, please let me know below. Let me know your thoughts with regards to this video, if there's anything that I missed to include. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you want more videos from me, please let me know what you'd like to hear about when it comes to France. Please check out the playlists I made in the past, because those videos are really old. But if you want an updated version of those videos, please do let me know. And if you are trying to move to abroad to a different country, experience different cultures and people, I would definitely urge you guys to do so. The world is big. You have one life to live, experience. It really just changed the way that you think and view things. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And I'm just so happy I've afforded myself the opportunity to live in this country, experience things, even though it's negative and positive, but again, both countries have their positive and negatives, but it's just really changed my worldview, and I'm so grateful for that. I love that. And just taking a chance to do a study abroad, and how that choice has impacted the rest of my life is crazy to think. If you have that opportunity, I urge you to do it. I urge you to travel. Even if you can do a sabbatical, do it. Just take 1 year, 6 months, 1 month, whatever you can. Go somewhere else and live and experience and appreciate. And there will be aspects of it where you might appreciate certain things about your country a lot more. Which there's aspects of that which I definitely do, because the bureaucracy in France, that is something in and of itself. But the experience that you're afforded in just being and interacting with other people, I think is just, it's amazing. And I think everybody should have that opportunity. So if you can, please take the opportunity to, if you have any questions, please don't forget to ask. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And your girl will be back soon for a new video. Peace.
Pull up, pull up, I pull up, pull up, pull up, I pull up.